not necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now it's time for the newspaper review, and we'll start by taking the headlines on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. Now we have the lead story here that says federal government to end polio December, says Shetima. And we have riders that says virus has declined in Nigeria by 84%. Bill Gates reiterates $7 billion aid. Concrete decisions needed, says Dangote, and governors says will support all initiatives for healthy population. And you can find a pictorial there of the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, receiving the French Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs, Catherine Colonna, as he arrives at the Palais Brognier for the new Global Finance Act in Paris. Now, this is attributed to the headline here that says African countries suffering debt hangovers, says Macron, UN. Details can be found on page 4. We also have more stories. Fuel price hike, salary earners turn cab drivers, sleep in offices. Now, Hajj, Nakon to complete airlift tomorrow. How BDC operator, pregnant wife were found dead in Abuja. Sad one there. At the top of the page, India out of Nigeria's top 5 trading partners. Lasu, best graduating student, says I survived on Gari, had no hostel. And we also have INEC deleted FCT Beavers results, says PDP witness. And these are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
And at the top of the Punch newspaper, federal government, state, local governments share 786 billion naira May revenue. Catch that story on page 24. Labour discourse on collision course over electricity tariff hike. You want to read more? Well, it's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Terrorists planning attacks on religious fund centers, DSS warns. Also, for the leading headline there, DMO worries over low revenue as Nigeria's debt nears 81 trillion naira. FG's 10 trillion naira revenue can't support fresh borrowing. And that's according to the Debt Management Office. Government to issue promissory note as judgment debt nears 3 trillion naira. Also, Paris Summit, subsidy removal, FX policy needed for survival, says Tinubu. And you could see some pictures there of President Tinubu and some dignitaries, including the President of France. Below that, Ogun tops as NPC registers 49,000 deaths in 6 months. Scholars should not be relegated for money bags, according to LASU best students. And finally, on the Punch, Oshomole Adeleke, others bid farewell as Dr. C is buried.
All right, let's take a look at Guardian newspaper, and we have the lead story that talks about flood of fury. No respite for Bayelsa, Kogi rivers, 30 others ahead of another cloud burst. That's the big story. Details can be found on pages 4 and 5. Again, NNPC fails to remit as Federation shares 786 billion naira for May. We also have it's no longer business as usual in Nigeria. Tinubu rallies investors. Missing Titanic sub suffered catastrophic implosion, passengers dead. And forensic experts claims INEC deleted results on Beaver's machine. 20% doctors, 33% nurses diagnose inaccurately, says federal government, hinting. NLC cautions government against increasing electricity tariff. And these are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper.
And for this day newspaper, federal government, states get higher allocation as FAC disperses 786.161 billion naira May revenue. Also, FIRS targets 40 million traders in fresh initiative to improve VAT remittance by informal sector. You can catch that story on page 5. Also, curse of Titanic resonates as Titan submersible implodes, killing all 5 on board. You can catch that story on page 35. Quite an unfortunate one there. Also, the lead story, Tinubu in Paris, ignoring Nigeria will be perilous to the universe. A couple of riders there join world leaders to tackle debt poverty issues. Says he's prepared for business, ready for investors to come to Nigeria. Meets with Afrexim Bank, EBRD president. Also, at meeting with Shatima, Gates Foundation votes $7 billion intervention for Africa in the next 4 years. And these are some of the stories on the front page of This Day this morning.
All right, let's take a look at Nigerian Tribune. From the top of the page there, polio immunization. Bill Gates commits $7 billion at meeting with Shatima governors. Pepsi, INEC deletes FCT presidential election results on Beavers, witness alleges. We also have the lead story here that says NLC kicks against electricity tariff hike, says planned hike insensitive and callous. We also have Oyo lawmakers worry over surge in kidnappings, killings to convene security summit. Appeal court reinstates ex-NIA DG Dauda, affirms industrial court judgment. We also have no approval for salary increase for political office holders. Presidency says over 2 million to perform 2023 Hajj in Saudi Arabia. 10th National Assembly, North Central, South lawmakers for majority leader, juicy committees. Southwest may clinch deputy house leader. Details on page 4. And we have missing Titanic submersible crew confirmed dead after a catastrophic implosion. These are some of the stories on Nigerian Tribune.
Outrage over proposed 114% pay rise for Tinubu. Others. This is the lead story on Daily Sun. A couple of riders. Presidency denies approval. Obi, CTA, Farotimi, others slam federal government. Says situation in country does not allow for salary rise for leaders. And beside the nameplate, Nnamdi Kanu, Ohaneze, Masob, IPOB, Lambas, Asari, Dokubo. You want to know what they said? Well, it's on page 26 on the Daily Sun. And below the pictorial, INEC deliberately deleted results from BVAS, forensic experts tell tribunal. Group begs Atiku Obi to withdraw case, joint government of national unity. Catch that story on page 27. Also, U.S. immigration lawyer testifies against Lagos deputy governor. Also, NLC demands suspension of planned increase in electricity rate. And Tinubu to EBRD, Afrexim Bank, were ready for business. Dignitaries' massive crowd bid DAR founder Dokwesi goodbye. He was humility personified, says Bishop Dunia. Also, Bill Gates Foundation to commit $7 billion on interventions in 4 years. And finally, below the belt, or rather on the belt, DSS alleges plan to attack worship centers during Salah. That's it for the Daily Sun.
All right, let's move on to the Nation newspaper. From the top there, Lagos Blue Line Rail to operate from August. Boost on Marina Mile 2 route. We also have exchange rate determines airfares, says IATA. Travelers to pay more. Now, we also have Naira weakens to 765 Naira per dollar. Eminent Nigerians bid Dokwesi farewell in Agenebode, and no 114% salary raise. We also have below the nameplates there, the removal of subsidy cuts tanker loading period by 5 days. And the lead story here says we've removed obstacles to growth. Tinubu tells investors. And writers here says President promises more investment-friendly reforms. Nigeria seeks UK support in war against insecurity. Labour Party, Obi's witness contradicts each other at election tribunal. And the NLC cautions against electricity tariff hike. And these are some of the stories on The Nation.
Finally, for the business day, petrol marketers, regulators see mergers as competition begin. Also above that, we see FMCG firms' profit margins drops to 10-year low. And beside the pictorial, MTN demands board meeting over rift with IHS. Soft drink sales rise 58% despite price hike, according to a report. You could catch that story on page 2. Explainer, how Nigeria can curb crude oil theft. And that's much we can take on the front page of the Business Day newspaper. So this morning we will be joined by our newspaper reviewer, talking about no other person than Malam Nuruddin Abdullah, the editor at 21st Century Chronicle. Interestingly, we're adorning the same color of attire this morning. So welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, so perhaps I should start with business. Tinubu is in France, and the key takeaway is we're ready for business. And then back home in Nigeria, Bill Gates is saying we're ready to commit $7 billion. What do you make out of all of this?
Yes, government is all about business, about the price of bread and whatever. So he has won the elections and he has been returned, sworn in, so he has to swing into action. He can't just stay here and allow maybe manna to drop from heaven. He has to scout for investment, particularly, at this critical time when it's so much money. And if you look at the nature of meetings he held yesterday in Paris, you understand what I'm saying. The Afri-Exim Bank, So, by and large, the president, like he's saying, one of the catch headlines yesterday, Nigeria is ready for business. So it's inviting investors to come to the business environment, and particularly, like I normally say, he's economically literate, unlike just politicians that we have, they just come. So it's part of it. And if you look at what Bill Gates is saying, so I think it's a source of concern, particularly the issue of polio. We thought that, Nigeria is
over
that issue, but it's the problem is still resurging, So I think
we've been recording a few cases.
Yeah. So I think it's a high time for all the stakeholders at all levels of government, to really do the needful to eradicate this once and for all.
Okay, but shouldn't something be done, on our health sector? Because so far we've not seen any moves being made to revamp the health sector. And even on Guardian, it actually has it that 20% doctors and 33% nurses actually diagnose inaccurately. And this is the federal government hinting on this.
Yes, it has been a very recurring problem. So it is not just about the manpower. We talk about the doctor to patient ratio. We talk about, can I call it capital flight? Doctors moving to US and what have you. But we don't talk about how competent are these doctors. We can count so many VIPs, Nigerian VIPs, who were sent to their early graves, if there is anything like that, because of wrong diagnosis, particularly by Nigeria. It's a factor of so many things. How qualitative our medical institutions. Is the Nigerianness in us equally part of that medical training institutions? Look at the MDCN. Yeah, every year, trained doctors are subjected to exams. If you see the failure, the percentage is outrageous.
High.
Exactly. So, like other sectors, even the medical sector is really in trouble. It is not about the number of doctors that we have. How many of them are competent enough to do common diagnosis? There are instances whereby you go to a medical center and a doctor is, as you talk, he's Googling. Yes, there are instances like that. Not once, not twice. As you are explaining what your problems are to him, he's Googling to look at the symptoms and the likely remedies. This has to stop. But like I tell you, it is just not one sector. If you let's talk about the police, for instance. You say they are corrupt, they are this, but they're Nigerians. So this corruption has permeated almost all the nooks and crannies of the society, and something big needs to be done about it.
Okay, now Nuruddin, let's backtrack a little bit. So, earlier in the conversation, we started by asking your take about the president and what he's been doing since he started in office. He's currently in Paris, and he says we're ready for business. However, on the other hand, he seems unperturbed about what's going on, at the presidential election petitions court. I mean, just yesterday we see a witness that the PDP brought, and he said about a couple of BVAS machines were tampered with, categorically stating that results were deleted from these machines. Shouldn't the president have cause to worry?
From experience, I don't think he should. You understand? His lawyers are taking care of that. But more importantly, elections were conducted across 36 states, plus the FCT. 774 local governments across the country. 109 senatorial districts. About 360 federal constituencies. About 140,000 polling units.
I think 176.
76 polling units, you understand? These issues, the thinking is this. What the data analyst said yesterday, for instance, is just a one-off thing. Is it enough to invalidate the election?
Because I know that the APC's counsel had questioned him, on whether he's aware that the sample that he presented to the court represented just 0.16%, of the total.
So that is the thinking. Whether I don't know. Without prejudice to the tribunal, we have a system whereby the moment you win an election, you are returned. Your opponent will go to court and you'll be sworn in. The electoral umpire will be by your side.
But is he supposed to, be bothered about what's happening in court rather than, focusing on,
I think that is it. And, the probability of invalidating the election. I don't want to say the percentage.
Of course, let's not talk about that. But in your opinion, you feel he's making the right moves and taking the right decisions by not allowing himself to be disturbed or swayed by the activities in court. He should let his lawyers do what
I think that's how it should be.
While he faces
that's how it should be. For now, he's the president. So let him be presidential in what he's doing. Okay. Let him concentrate on Nigeria and Nigerians. Let his lawyers handle, and the party handles the tribunal.
Okay, so talking about leading and being the president and focusing on Nigeria. Now, we're not going to have it easy now, are we? Because, from the 1st of July, there's the tariff hike. Of course, we know that NLC is doing the best that it can. But then again, there was a planned protest and that never happened, and we're still dealing with the cost of fuel subsidy removal as it is. And then, the issue that is most pressing right now, in the minds of many Muslim faithfuls is the cost of rising cost of commodities in the market, aside the rising cost of even rams and sheep. So, your one, how has it been? Just tell us your experience.
Yeah, it has not been easy, naturally. But on the other hand, I'm a realist. I'm a realist in the sense that there are certain measures that need to be taken. He was elected by majority of Nigerians, to improve their commonwealth. But they didn't tell him how he will do that.
But he claimed to have the answer.
And many Nigerians believed him. That's why they elected him.
They used past tense, believed.
No, that was the election. Until it is determined, like you mentioned, the tribunal and the Supreme Court, Therefore, it is left for him now. He's on the seat to look. How am I going to stop ASU strike? He reincarnated the student loan, right? How am I going to end this perennial fuel scarcity, the corruption, the endemic corruption in it?
But some would argue,
removing the subsidy, for instance.
Sorry, Cyrus, just before you go on, like even what do you call it? Daily Trust carried a story about salary earners becoming cab drivers. I think I've experienced a few that when they're on their way home, they pick people up and they get paid for their fuel, or even they organize within, you know, their colleagues in the office. They pay them some amount for fuel so they can transport themselves to and from work, and saying some even go as far as sleeping in their offices to avoid having to, you know, spend extra, you know, out of out of their pockets for fuel.
It's good that Husseina is asking these questions because, you know, when we say he's trying to make things better, of course you mentioned he reincarnated the Student Loan Act. All of these policies, in my mind, ends up taking money away from Nigerians. Resources that they are already managing, dealing with the cost of the fuel subsidy removal. You know, it's still as a
30%
it's still a
wage.
root shock. And I must say that a lot of Nigerians seem to be traumatized in one way or the other, really, because, I mean, it just came out of an administration that a lot would say was not the best at the time. And then, you know, you're being shocked with these different forms of policy being introduced that ends up taking money away from you or even increasing the cost of living so exponentially that some people even begin to wonder, I'm working and at the end of the month, what I'm getting as take home cannot cater for all of my needs. So are we better off currently?
Let me reiterate what I said earlier. I'm a Nigerian, but a realist. Yeah, I differ with so many people on so many issues because the way I look at them. You want infrastructure, you want stable power, you want better schools, better teachers. How do you get them? All these things requires huge funds. And you don't want more debt. Because now you're already talking about, we have almost, it's going through the rooftops, you know, exhausting our sustainability rate. How do you do all this? Is it by magic? Or you will just recite some incantations or prayers and dollars will drop from? No. There are some measures that need to be taken. And like I tell you, he's a driving seat now. For 8 years, Buhari's administration, even before he was elected, he did not believe in subsidy. But he superintended the worst subsidy regime Nigeria ever had in the last 8 years. He handed it over to this administration. What do you expect him to do? Okay. To be spending over 6 trillion or 7 trillion, more than 40% of our budget on subsidy that almost everybody believes is plagued with corruption and what have you. Okay. No, that's why he quickly...
No, but I think a lot of people would actually agree with you on that. But what they disagree with is the fact that, you know, nothing has been put in place yet to cushion the effect of the removal for the masses.
I agree. You know, I agree.
And don't forget, Madam Nuruddin, that there were speculations. In fact, Daily Trust reported of a planned increase to about 114% the salaries of the president. Yes, I know
which
that
has been denied by
it was debunked by the government. However, the Daily Trust never said it was approved by the president. We said it was a planned increase expected to happen. So, don't you think this, you know, sows a seed of discord, sort of? You're putting us in so much pain and then you're paying yourself for it.
You should know that these guys are not up to 1 month in office. Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission responsibility primarily is to do that, and they just did it by January. There is Nigerian Wages Commission, which reviews the wages of civil servants. So we don't know what is happening to them. You understand? But the revenue mobilization did its own work, which was in January. So it is now, I think maybe we are fast, we want to put the cart before the horse. Let Tinubu approve it, then we'll see how serious he is. Nobody is on mind. And I don't think that they even presented that to him. You know, that is, and again, if you look at even this increase, it doesn't make anything much. How much is the salary of the president? But look at how much he spends.
But the expectation would be that, you know, when you come in, especially in situations like this, we know that democracy is a very, very, very expensive venture to go into, and maintaining our politicians and our leaders costs the country a lot of money. So perhaps for the sake of PR, wouldn't it have been better if, I mean, they doused this down for a while and then announce it much later? Because we cannot be suffering. For example, I'm just trying to read the minds of an average Nigerian. We cannot be suffering. You cannot remove subsidy. You cannot remove the free education that we've been enjoying. You cannot remove the electricity tariff and then come at us with a planned increase in your salaries. Come on. We should be thinking about reducing the cost.
I say you are putting the cart before the horse without any. I don't know what will happen to the lady commissioner that made that statement in.
Of course.
In Kenya. But what I'm saying here is this: she's a commissioner representing that state. If, for instance, Chief Dele Alake or Gbajabiamila, the chief of staff to the president, or any other appointee of the president, comes forward and make that declaration, you know what Nigerians will do. It will elicit a very mass. But what the lady was doing, and look at even the context. I don't want to vilify her so much, you know, but it's the role of the revenue mobilization. It was done since January. So, because, you know, of the anger, but by and large, we want better education, good infrastructure, stable power supply. We want bandits out of our land. We want Boko Haram out of our land. We don't want kidnappers. We don't want ritualists. We want an end to criminal violence.
Okay.
But how do you do that?
Mr. Nuru,
you have to make money. And how do you make money? By borrowing more or by tasking Nigerians. We have, like now, the next item should be the expansion of the tax net. You have 3 cars, but now with the 514 naira something, now you have surrendered. You are only using one.
I do not have 3 cars. I do not have 3 cars.
You understand?
I do not have 3 cars.
And do you know something? Maybe very briefly. You know, Nigerians now are devising ways of making. Go to US. We go to that place. We work extra hard to make money. Yeah, you work in 3 places or more to earn more. Now, you know, some civil servant who sell, okay, I'm a civil servant level 10 or 8. I have 3 wives living in Abuja with 13 children.
As a civil
servant. And you want President Tinubu to be feeding all these.
All right.
So maybe we have to look inward and rearrange our.
Okay, 3 cars and 3 wives.
Let's move away from that. I think he loves the number 3, by the way.
I have only one after all.
All right, let's take a look at the lead story on the Guardian newspaper talking about the flood, you know, in some parts of the country. Enough, as far as a lot of us are concerned, enough has actually been said about it. And, you know, it's like a recurring issue. Is it possible to actually find a permanent solution, to flooding in Nigeria?
You see, I want to add to that because I know that every year the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, gives out predictions, you know, expect so and so rainfall. And NISA, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, also does the same. So the question is, what do we do with these early warning signals, and what do we do with this information? Because I understand that the governors are supposed to take this and then prepare mitigating factors to ensure that there are no casualties. But then at the end of the day, it seems to be a tradition for every year we record floodings in different parts of the country and wait for NEMA to swoop in to share palliative and mattresses. It's an awful sight. What can we do to just prevent this once and for all?
Like you rightly said, you know, the NASA and NIMET prediction or forecast are only used by our governors, particularly at the state level, you know, to plan for palliatives and relief materials, nothing else. When they look at it, okay, I'm the governor of XYZ state, I have 36 local governments and 26 will be affected. I'm looking at the money. What is the cause of this flooding? We have said it over and over again, and nothing is being done. It happens mostly in our urban areas. Most of the states, capitals for instance, we have 36, maybe with the exception of Abuja, even Lagos, there is zero municipality authorities presence. Gutters are not being cleared off.
Systems.
You understand? Waterways are being built upon with government complicity. In situations whereby even if there is a flood, for instance now, there is no an open space where the victims will be taken to. So it's still a factor of our municipality plans, which is zero in most of the state. And more importantly, the best of us, the most law-abiding citizens in Kano, in Kaduna, are those that will bring refuse to from their houses and dump it on the waterways outside. They are the best, the cleaners of us. So why don't we have flood? And authorities are happy because they use it to siphon more money for mattresses, for bags of pure waters, and what have you. It's a daily recording. They use the forecast just to plan for relief materials.
All right. So I understand that we're short of time now. I want to thank you very much, Malam Nuruddin Abdullah, the editor of 21st Century Chronicle, for joining us on the newspaper review this morning. And
My
also
pleasure.
For telling us about 3 wives and 3 cats. I don't know where he got that figure from anyways, but we do hope that you would come again once we come.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
thank you, Sarah. All right.
All right, we'll be going on a break now and return at the top of the hour to serve you more on Daybreak. Do stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that